Bet horse racing on DRF Bets. We'll match your first deposit of $200. Get free expert picks and past performances, plus weekly cash back. All from Daily Racing Form, the most trusted name in horse racing. Hi everybody, Dan Illman, Mike Beer for Breeders' Cup Prep Recap. In this edition, we're going to take a look back at the Grade 1 Woodward at Belmont at the Aqueduct meeting, an important prep race for the Breeders' Cup Classic because it features the likely second choice in the wagering behind Unbeaten Flightline. It's the very fast Life is Good, who broke from the rail in this short field, Mike, and not surprisingly, was too fast for them early.
Yeah, this wasn't much of a race on paper. It just kind of felt like there was no way he could lose. The public bet the race that way. He's a huge favorite, as we're accustomed to seeing from this horse, Dan. He breaks the gate very alertly. He's clear in front right away. And for the first time since we've seen this horse race, Dan, they actually take a hold of him early here. He gets to the half in 48 3. It's 2 full seconds faster than the slowest half mile of any of his prior 10 races.
And at first glance, you would think that's great. He's now proven that he can rate a little bit. It adds a new dimension. But you would also think that if he went this slow early, he's supposed to widen on this group late, and it just didn't happen. Is it a situation where you think he didn't care for the sloppy track? He didn't wow a lot of folks in the Whitney. You and I think the Whitney was a lot better than it looks, perhaps on paper, and he didn't wow a lot of people here in the Woodward.
No, he didn't. He's not going to wow you with this performance for sure. It is a slow pace it feels like some seriously overmatched horses behind him. And, I get it. He doesn't get away from this field. I'd like to, I heard, some people saying after the race that he worked pretty hard to win here. I'd like to see the point where he was actually working hard in this race. To me, there was never any point in this race where it looked like he was going to lose. He gets away from this horse, challenging him pretty readily, I thought. Dan, it is the first time this horse has ever run over a sealed racetrack, so I guess there are ways to mitigate it if you want to. I didn't really feel the need to do that. I just feel like this is a prep race. He's doing what he has to do. And at the end of the day, I thought he won it pretty easily.
The law professor did take a run at Life is Good in the stretch, but Life is Good just asserts his class at the end. The Beyer speed figure for this horse is low. A 97 Beyer speed figure, of course, not counting the Dubai race. This is a horse that had run triple-digit Beyer speed figures in every single start except his career debut. The Whitney was a drop from the Nehru going 7/8, 112 to 107. This was a 10-point drop from the Whitney. Is it simply fair to say that this horse is more effective going a distance like a mile, where we saw him win the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile so nicely last year?
I mean, I guess that's one way to look at him. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, but I certainly wouldn't argue too hard against it. I don't know what his best distance is. I think, you can't, once they start getting out to 1.25 miles, like he's going to have to do on Breeders' Cup Classic Day, I guess that's where you would start to worry about him. I think he's perfectly good at 9 furlongs for sure. I just don't really know what to say about, this race that we just watched, the Woodward. To me, he's just doing what he has to do there. I really liked his Whitney. I think it's a lot better than the final figure might lead some people to believe. I think more than anything else, Dan, obviously he has Flightline waiting for him at the Breeders' Cup. I just kind of feel like after this Woodward, I don't think you're supposed to really necessarily change your mind about Life is Good one way or the other. If you liked him going into the Woodward and heading to the Breeders' Cup, I think he didn't give you any reason not to stick with him. And if you were sort of against him and had concerns about him going into that race, I guess that's the kind of race that didn't necessarily want to make you sit up and take notice. I think he's a good horse.
Horses 2 through 4 in the Woodward are not Breeders' Cup contenders, certainly not in the Classic division. Let's get a closer look at Life is Good, a son of Into Mischief, trained by Todd Pletcher. Arad Ortiz kept him well off the rail over the sloppy track in the Woodward. His one race at 1.25 miles, I think that's the main concern for many handicappers, along with, of course, Flightline in the Breeders' Cup Classic. That was the Dubai World Cup. He looked like he was traveling comfortably on the lead, and he was empty the final 3/16 of a mile. Does that prove to you that the 1.25 miles is an impossibility for Life is Good, especially considering that he's going to have to work every step of the way with Flightline, a horse that's no slouch from the gate?
Yeah, it has to be a real concern, heading into the Breeders' Cup where they're going to try 10 furlongs again, because everything that you said about the Dubai World Cup is true. I thought the pace was legitimate, the pace that he was setting in that race. But he was clear and basically unchallenged for much of the running of that race. It looked like he had everybody off the bridle coming around the final turn there and still had a clear lead in the stretch. And he just stopped finding late. And it's hard not to watch that race back and think, this horse didn't get to 10 furlongs. Now, maybe there are mitigating circumstances there, Dan. They did ship him all, halfway around the world to run over a different track. And it was a track that looked to be a little bit tiring, but it's still not this horse's best performance for sure.
Taking a look at the prices for the Grade 1 Woodward, Life is Good was 1 to 20. Maybe didn't win like a 1 to 20 shot. Pays 210 all the same. You might not love his last two races, but keep in mind that the only two that came on wet tracks. He might simply be better on fast going. If he gets that at Keeneland, you know where he's going to be in the early part of the race. If he breaks well, he looks like the pace setter in the Breeders' Cup Classic, and Flightline might have to fight him.